everyone, and welcome to our show. This is the Mercedes Lucke Benedict show, and I have I think actually Anita, I have Anita, Joe, and Tenzo here. If you do watch Facebook on all my promos, you'll know it's Anita, Joe, and Tenzo tonight with me. And Anita, I think this is you're my third. You're the third. This is three times that I've interviewed you. I believe we've made three, so this is the first.
That's
on
correct. I know.
I just love you.
That the people see what I look like.
No, you're so. I was just telling you how beautiful. Like, I love that outfit. I went all white tonight. You're going into black tonight. Usually I'm in black. But I so appreciate you being on the show, and I'm so excited.
We should have coordinated. I should have asked you ahead of time.
I've got my tree, and I've got my usual.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and anyway,
well, I have just a curtain in the back of me.
Oh, you just look adorable.
I just put a curtain in the back so you didn't see all the junk in my studio.
Well, that's the great thing about this type of interview. You know, we can just make our studios work for us, however that is. And it's just a blessing to be able to, let's think about this, that we're actually even able to do this is, I think, miraculous, compared to what we could do 10 years ago, So I do want to say that
definitely. We take it for granted.
Yeah. I try not to take anything for granted too much anymore, but I really am appreciative of you coming to get to be with me. So I met Anita from our mutual acquaintance and friend, Reverend Bill Bean. Reverend Bill Bean is instrumental in helping my family and our property, change my life, save my life. Altered my life, and the same happened with Anita here and her son Chris. And so in the promo, I wanted to make sure that people could see that you guys had this amazing business that you do together, and that you're an artist, and then I wanted to show that we go into what was very scary. The pictures that I put in that you had sent me, looking at those pictures, they really are frightening. So I really don't know where I want to start, except I think we should just start this is all kind of new, because last time we've just done the audio. So I would like the audience that is watching now, or the audience that will be watching in the future, to know a little bit about you. So let's just tell us a little bit about what you would like people to know. About you.
I've been an artist almost all my life, as soon as I can pick up a pencil, and getting with where I am now, I never dreamed I'd be on shows talking about books that I've written, because that was never anything that entered my mind until those extraordinary circumstances that happened to me. Now it's 15 years ago, but I grew up in an artistic family. My great-grandfather was a sculptor. My dad was an artist. And I picked up, the pencils, started drawing when I was very little, and went on to one of the top art schools in the country, Moore College of Art and Design in Philadelphia, and actually got a teaching degree and taught for a few years in the high school in our local area. But then I went into the commercial field when I felt like I wasn't using my artwork and my artistic talents enough. I like teaching, which I still did for 25 years with night school, but I branched out into do more illustrative and restoration. So that was where my love was for restoring paintings and being a painter. Also that I, could look into to see other people, give them appraisals, see what type of artwork they had, and have a lot of satisfied customers through the years. Worked for a big company doing photo restoration on the computer. And when that company was bought out by another company, I lost my job on that, but then I went into doing past images by Anita, which was my own studio to restore work and be a freelance artist. And it really came into mostly that was what I was doing. I was a single parent. I worked 4 jobs at one time, trying to keep things together, raising my son by myself with the help of my parents, which were fantastic to help me out. But in 2009, my when my good friend passed away suddenly, and I found out I was the executor of his estate, that took me in a whole different direction because not only did I have to see about going into his home all of a sudden because he died suddenly of a heart attack, that I didn't even know what was really involved. And as we were at his house, if anyone saw the program on A Haunting, which was Portal of Doom, and it gave you a little summary of what really happened with us and what I based my first book on, we started getting paranormal types of occurrences happening, which completely took us by surprise. We had never dreamed that we would be in that situation. I mean, my son and I both enjoyed watching TV shows with the ghost hunters and people having experiences, not realizing that we would be in the center of something like that ourselves. So when things started happening, which we couldn't explain, it just sort of snowballed that the more that we went into my friend's house to try to get things, it took 10 months while we were in my friend's house because he was a hoarder and had traveled all around the world and had hundreds of boxes of artifacts and things that we knew nothing about, to start going through them and finding out some people had to receive some things had to be sent overseas. It was just it took 2 years out of our lives to get the estate settled, to spend 10 months in the
Wow.
house, to start going through everything, and because the house had to be sold. And then we then had to make sure people in his will also received things that were mentioned in the will. But also, I was left with hundreds of boxes that he left to me that I had no idea what to do with. So I just put them in my basement. They were all kinds of artifacts from all around the world that you can imagine, like South America, Egypt, Greece, Rome, because he was a world traveler. And not knowing that the things that I was going through, which spending 30 to 40 hours a week in his house to go through things, which floor to ceiling in the basement alone, and then to bring things into my home, not knowing that I was setting myself up for really a future haunting, which, I had
Yeah.
no idea. But while we were in the house, we had shadow people that we saw, we had disembodied voices, poltergeist activity was at the max. At first I didn't know what I was even looking at. Like, okay, why is these things flying across the room? And we realized that something is not right here. This is not what we bargained for. And it was funny because the lawyer who was handling the estate, we started telling him about some strange things, and he just says, "I'm glad I'm not going to your house. You need just to get what you need to do." And we just said, "Well, we have to go through everything." I have no idea where all these things are that he's mentioning in his will because there's no rhyme or reason. There's a box you would open up, you had no idea that it would be a shaman Indian headdress from the Plains Indians, which was a buffalo headdress. Like, where did he pick this up? I knew he was out west, but it was like Native American artifacts, things from South America. As I said, just everything and anything you can imagine that he collected. And, we went through the processes. It's, as I said, it took us 10 months to go through to get an appraiser, an auctioneer to come in, do the furniture. We had Purple Heart. I think we had 700 bags given to charity that we had to go through and just gave away, plus all the artifacts that I was putting in my basement, and not realizing after we closed his home after 10 months that the things I brought into my house were going to start activating a crazy situation here, and which we still are dealing with. It's 15 years since we finished with his home. And out of that time, I've written 2 books on our experiences at his house and at my house. And also I just did a project that I want to do about my parents, which was a couple years ago. I wrote about their life during World War II. But so much is interconnected, Mercedes, that we talk about vibrations and energies and things, how they seem to find you. And my son, I realized things were kind of targeting him before we realized how bad the situation was at the house. And he became more of a medium after we left that house, because the traumatic circumstances and the things that we dealt with, which were so extraordinary, that he became, or where he would dream and people would come to him that had recently died. And we started keeping a diary, not only at my friend's house, but we kept audio and visual things that we tried to photograph and record. And a lot of that was what went into my first book, A State of Horror, which was documented our time at his house, and what the program Portal of Doom on a haunting TV show was based on my first book, and a little bit of the second book that they used, because at that time my second book wasn't really even published yet, but I gave them an idea of what some of the outline was. So it's been a long journey. It's just been a long journey, and it was something that I think I knew that I always had some psychic ability, but when you're brought up in kind of a religion that's sort of strict on that and doesn't believe that you should be prophesizing or being clairvoyant or having telepathy or anything like that, you're not supposed to really have that. But I realized
Right.
then that, yeah, I do have some of these abilities, and they've clarified more since my friend passed away and the experiences we've had, and then my son being so sensitive. So it's been a really crazy journey, and that's what I've documented in my two books. And as I wrote to you recently, things are continuing being very strange over here that what recently just happened. So
Right. And so for the audience, um, I totally resonate with Anita. Well, on so many levels. But I love the fact, Anita, that you did keep records, and that, because that's what I did. Like, I don't even
yes.
know why I was doing it, but I was just like always filming whatever or documenting it.
Hmm.
And it, and that to me is part of my journey, but it's really part of yours. And it created these books. And what's happened to you and your
Yes. Mm.
circumstance, this happens to people all of the time, the clients that I have, and even ourselves. uh Joe, with my
Mhm.
husband, always is
Mhm.
refurbishing art pieces that people will give him, and I can't tell you how many that were brought to this house. And you'd go around
Mhm.
the corner of
Mhm.
the shop, and I'm like, there's, what is that? And I could feel it, and something had come here to be refurbished. And we'd
Okay,
have
okay.
and we'd have to like, one of them was
Mhm,
from
mhm.
Peru, as a statue, and I'm like, oh my god, there's nothing against Peru, but it had an attachment.
Oh,
I mean,
wow. Oh, wow.
numerous times we add that to this whole mix. And then also the fact that you brought it into your house,
Mhm.
and like you were just living a kind of normal life. And had you not started to go and work with a person's
Yeah, yeah.
will and their items, that those items then attached into your life. Now, that happens to people all the time. So your story is
Yes.
really incredible. And I
Yeah.
think, I believe
Mhm.
Bill told me, or you might have said that a haunting was the highest rated, or really a highly rated, one of the shows of the haunting. It was well received, was that particular show that you were in. So people resonated with your story.
Yes. Yes. Mhm. Yes. Because I think they really brought a very great authenticity to the whole story, because the story was multi-layered, Mercedes, because it was not just a friend passing away and you have to get rid of things, which people every day have relatives that they have to start like, oh my gosh, look at this, what I have in front of me. But when he's not even a relative, he was a good friend, and you're going into someone else's life and discovering things that you never knew, and you're thinking responsibility of like taking this on and actually reading all these like personal things, because his brother, who was 10 years older than him and they were estranged, he came about a day or two later after he found out his brother passed away and confronted me. And he was very angry that I was there as executor to go through the house and go. He says, well, you're going to go through things, you're going to throw everything out. And he was afraid, I guess, that a lot of family heirlooms and things, I wouldn't know, how to take care of it. But I told him, I said, look, I said, I'm in charge and you don't know me. I will go through every single thing, and anything that belongs to you or your family, they'll get packed up and I'll put them aside and I will call you. You can come and get these things. And I did that. And he was very, very grateful in the end that he thanked me. Like we had an understanding then that what started out to being very hostile. I just said to him, I said, whatever happened between you and your brother, that water is under the bridge. I mean, that should be put aside because he's now gone. And whatever animosity you had to each other, let that just fall aside. And I will honor his memory by not making you, angry, more angry than you are, because it is a loss. You lost your brother, you lost your parents, about 10 years ago. I said, this way I will honor, and I'll call you. And I did. He came down, I don't know how many times. I would have things packed for him because he was an artist also. And there were things that belonged to him that had been packed away. And apparently my friend never even got in touch with his brother, sort of like maybe just in spite, like, I'm not going to give you anything. But I just packed up. And by going through the family things, I discovered stuff that I wish I hadn't, because it then added a little bit of a sinister kind of layer, because I found out more about the family history and things that dated to World War II. And some of those things had repercussions about what we were experiencing in the house and this evil energy that continues to this day, because we discovered things that we should have never. If the brother had been in there to do what he needed to do, then I wouldn't have been involved in finding this stuff out. But ironically, his brother had had a heart attack years before, and he said to me later, I would never been able to do this, Anita. It would have killed me if I had to do what you're doing on a weekly basis. So, he acknowledged that, here he had a heart attack and my friend had a heart attack. It was only 55 when he passed. My son just had a heart attack in October. I mean, I've had dear friends of mine that passed away, that I grew up with, that have died suddenly from heart attack. It's my mother died from a heart attack. My grandmother died from a heart attack. It's like, to me, I'm overwhelmed by having this kind of thing. But at the same point, it's like, well, this is the number one killer in our country. And it's the lifestyle and what we're eating and everything. And my son has made a complete 180. I mean, he's lost 45 pounds. He's doing really, really well. The cardiologist, he's like a new person, he's doing really, really well. But it's still in back of my mind is anything
Yeah.
that we've done or in our lifestyle, has this contributed to him having this at 40 years old, having a heart attack? But that's
Yeah.
all speculative at this point. But Bill Bean coming into our life when we needed him to come to our home and was able to do what he did. And he has been to our house quite a few times. And he was just here 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It has been the greatest thing for us to have that reinforcement and validation, and having that he knows what we're going through and he acknowledges it, that we're not making, he knew we were the real deal. He said to us as soon as he met us, I know you're not making this up because I feel it, what exactly you're telling me. As soon as before he even entered the house, outside, he could feel the energy that was not right. And we told him our story, and then the rest is history, because then I documented it into 2 books. But I mean, he was here in 2018, and some of the photos I sent you in our basement, where he's near a fireplace, which is part of the original old fireplace to our 1800s farmhouse that was here. We're in the foundation, and he got a growling response when he started saying prayers. Plus the photos we have gotten of in the basement when he was there, of that image on our metal pipe, which looked like a like skeleton face, and then another one was of a person with the mouth open that was completely different. And Bill said he had never seen anything like that, because my son followed him. We asked Bill's permission while he was doing the cleansing, which this was in 2018 because we were having activity going on that he says, I'm coming up. And Chris was behind him, getting these photos. And in real time, Bill could see, he said, this is crazy. He said, this is really frightening what we're picking up. So, he's been trying to get up here for the last few years, but with COVID and his schedule, and then he was ill for, a few weeks. And so he finally, when I called him and I mentioned to you what happened to us a couple of weeks ago, we were outside our property. Now, to tell your audience, our property actually dates way back to 1682. The earliest people on our property were Welsh Quaker farmers, and there's originally 4,000 acres that our property is just, there's maybe half an acre left where our property has seen a lot of living and dying, and Bill picked up on that. And also we're connected not far from us is a large building that's an apartment building, but it also was a hotel during the 1800s and was the Underground Railroad during the Civil War. And a lot of slaves were coming up through the south end of like Maryland and wherever, and coming up into the Philadelphia area. And all along where I'm only a couple blocks from a main artery, which is Westchester Pike. And that was a main artery all along there going right straight to Philadelphia. It was all part of the Underground Railroad stations. So the Black Bear Inn, which was this old hotel, which is only right up the street from me, that was an Underground Railroad station. And we actually have in the back of our house Civil War tunnels that have now been sealed off from the townships. But it's all part of like the Civil War and what was in this area during, last couple hundred years. So we didn't realize the living that we've been doing here until when we brought the things in from my friend's house. It kind of activated what was dormant here. And we had a friend of ours who helped us out, who was on the show, Laurie Hall, with her group. And as soon as she walked in the house, she said, you had something here already, Anita, before you brought in your things from your friend. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. She goes, oh yeah. She said, you've got a lot going on here. And now it's really upsetting sort of that docile and dormant kind of energy. So we realized that, yeah, this is what's going on, why we're having activity now in our house. After we closed his house in October of 2009, then within maybe maybe not even 2 months, things started happening here. And what happened to us a couple of weeks ago is we dig in the property with a metal detector. We're always finding pottery and things from like, a couple hundred years. And I mean, sometimes it's unexpected because when it rains heavy where our property is, it'll just kick up old pottery. And there's kind of like maybe on the side of the hill, might have been like a trash pit, that they would just throw pottery or whatever was broken. And we did find a really old iron that you iron clothes with from 1870. It was a solid, it must have weighed 5 pounds of solid iron. But anyway, my son wanted to get out in the fresh air a couple Sundays ago, metal detecting. We found some pottery we were digging up, and we found a big old iron hook and some other things. And we go, well, this is fun. We did it for a few hours. And within, I guess it was a day later, my son woke up and he comes into my room. It was like 4:30 in the morning. He goes, Mom, I think somebody's trying to break into the house. He heard this loud banging. I go, what? He pulls out a baseball bat from under his bed. He doesn't know what's going to go on. I go, I don't know. I said, let's just be really careful. Let's put the lights on. So we go down and we hear the banging, and we knew it wasn't coming. We looked out the back. We have floodlights because we have a backyard. So we put the floodlights on and we couldn't see anything, but we heard this banging. It sounded like a basketball being bounced onto the concrete floor of our basement. And we're listening to this, and I go, what is that? He goes, well, maybe it's an animal. Well, anyway, so we quick opened the door, put the lights on, and everything just stopped silent. We went down the stairs, and I go, where's it coming from? I said, there's nothing here. So we went back up to bed, and it stopped. And then it didn't happen until the evening. He came home from work, from our store, and we were having dinner. and 6 o'clock, and the new noise starts up again, the bang, bang, bang. And I get my phone out and I just open the door very easily and I start recording. He goes, what is going on? It lasted for at least 15, 20 minutes. So then we just flipped the light on, ran down the stairs, and things just stopped immediately. And that stopped for a while. So I mean, we just don't know what's going on. There's a one-time thing. We're watching TV at 10 o'clock at night. The banging started again. And I, by this time, we're really getting a little frantic. I go, so we went down with prayers that Bill gave us, holy water in a spray bottle. And we're just going down and doing the basement. And we're down the basement with flashlights because we didn't want to put the bright light on. But it was so silent down there. It was eerie. I said, we're saying the prayers. I said, I don't know what else to do. So we went up to bed next day, Tuesday morning at 3:30 in the morning. My son wakes me up again. The banging is again. It's a half hour. The banging wouldn't stop. And we were then really frantic because this is the second night that we're, awoken, you're awoken from a sound sleep. So I texted Bill Bean right away. I said, Bill, I know you're still up because he's always up late. I mean, I don't know what to do. This is really, we're really, really, we're really scared here. I don't know I've never heard this before, that this went on for such a long time. So he texted me right back and he said, look, I'm going to give you a call in the afternoon to see what's going on, if things are still going on. And he said, we'll set up a thing where I'll call you over the phone and do a deliverance over the phone. So he called me back 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I talked to him for about 15, 20 minutes. We set up a time. As soon as I got off the phone with him, the banging started again. I go, you got to be kidding me. I mean, he didn't, but I sent him the banging. I said, this is what's going on, Bill. And he could hear it. He goes, this is crazy, Anita. He said, it sounds metallic. He said, what? I said, we're trying to imitate the sound. We don't know if it's a back door that's being banged. I said, it's not glass. It sounds like like when it hits the ground or something, it kind of vibrates a little bit, but then it sounds a little bit different, that something else is being banged. So finally he set us up when my son got home. It was 10 o'clock at night and he did the deliverance over the phone, put it on loudspeaker, and we went down and he was on the phone with us for about a half hour. And we went through everything. And I said to Bill, I said, this is strange, Bill. I said, as we're saying this, I'm looking at my back wall and the metal cover to our fuse box, which was, maybe it's about 12 inches high. I said, it's open. Now that's usually latched. I said, that's open. And I'm wondering if that's the banging, that it just keeps hitting. So he said, well, look, he said, shut it and tape it. Just make sure that they can't open it or whatever they can do. And then I saw right near there a window that goes into it. Like we have a sunken basement, and the window that was near our side breezeway door, I said, one of our windows is broken now. I said, the vibration, it looks like it cracked one of the windows. So he said, look, he said, do this. He said, let me know what's going on. He said, I'm going to come up next week. He said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. I said, well, I'll let you know if anything else happens. And in the meantime, I just took a piece of cardboard and some tape and taped the window temporarily because it was cracked and the air's coming in and it's cold. So nothing happened after that. It was silent. And Bill came up the Wednesday, which was Valentine's Day. And I hated to take him away. He was already up here in New Jersey with another family. And he said, I'm stopping by. I go, well, I said, this is like a Valentine present that you're coming by. And he was here for over an hour and he went through the house with the holy water and with the way he does his deliverance. Only he can do that, and blessed me. He blessed my son. And this way he left and he said, Nita, I feel like everything is peaceful. I think you're going to be okay. And I said, well, I just feel so much better that you came. He's been wanting to get here. It's like 5 years since he's been here. So ever since then, Mercedes, everything has been fine. But for the grace of Bill and God, that thank goodness, that he was able, because I don't know what, it was 2 different days. Our nerves were so frazzled because we just didn't know when things were going to start banging.
And one
and
thing
it was
I'm like,
so loud. And let me bless the artifact. He said, get rid of those things that you found on the ground. Oh my gosh.
so it couldn't have been the wind coming through,
But
could
that's what
it?
happened.
That because it was like through the window, but yet you close that. And but I mean, for it to keep banging at certain times and then continuing, you would have noticed that if you been down there, you would have
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
it banging, right? Because we were looking down
Oh
there.
yeah. 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 Well, the window is set down and there's a well. So it's all stone around it. And then it goes up a level where we have a cover. So
Oh,
the window is protected. It's not out in the open, it's in it. And that is actually the wall, and where this window faces out into this well. That's the original foundation of the house. It's all because the basement is the original foundation of the 1800s farmhouse. And that's why we have the brick fireplace that is from the 1800s. It's the old fireplace that was, they must have maybe did cooking in the basement, because a lot of colonial times, you have a lower basement that you would cook to keep, fires at a minimum. And we do have where we have a fireplace up in our living room, which is the same chimney. But now my son's bedroom, the chimney wall is in back of his bed, and he could hear the noise from his room. I couldn't hear it as much because I'm like on another side of the house, and he could hear it from his room. And as I said, he's a sensitive, and it really, I'll tell you what worried me. It affected him with his sleep, and being, he's dealing with a heart condition. That worried me that this can't go on. He can't be jarred awake, and then he can't get the sleep because he's on six medicines, six different medicines. And he's just now getting better. They adjusted because he was in the emergency room 2 weeks ago. I had him in for high blood pressure, and they adjusted the medicine because the medicine, whatever they gave him, they changed it, and that would work better with. It's just you take one medicine for one thing and then it counteracts on something else. But it's just been a roller coaster, and we didn't need to have that craziness that happened. But
mhm.
but that's what we've been through. That's the latest. But there's been so many times where, I've sat in my living room watching TV and I see a shadow guy walking in my hallway. He's like 6 feet tall with a hat. I go, what are you? And he just walks through the front door and he just disappears. And the front door of our home where this shadow man was seen, we have a lot of activity that's happened there, or had, you know, strange vibration, door, and our wooden door, which is only 8 inches. And a person who had been taking care of my mother, or the caregiver, went by my house one Sunday morning to get to my mother, because my parents only lived 3 blocks away. She was going by and she told me later, she goes, "Who's the lady at your front door?" I said, "What lady?" She goes, "About 10 o'clock in the morning." But she said, "But I have to tell you though, she looked old fashioned. She had the high neck and, the collar and the leg of, the Gibson girl hairdo." I said, "Sharon, there's no woman at my front door. There's only 8 inches between the door. How would she be at the front door?" She goes, "Well, I guess, she might have been a ghost. I guess maybe." She couldn't explain who this woman. I go, "Yeah, well, we found out later who she could be, but it's like you saw her as you drove by." And she told me only later because she left, and then I took over. And I said, "Why'd you tell me sooner?" She goes, "Well, I was kind of hesitant to tell you, but yeah, I did see a lady front door." So yeah, but we've had a lot. I mean, that other thing I sent you of the changing of the shadow man on the front door, that 4 panel piece,
Yeah.
that, in fact, when I was on another show, they singled out from the video those 4 images of the shadow man forming, being at the door, then leaving. And we actually caught him on our trailer, my book trailer, that when you opened the door, you saw the shadow man at the front door, and you heard a dog bark, just one bark. And this was 12 o'clock at night. And in the Haunting TV episode, my son mentions a black dog with red eyes that he saw in his dreams, and he's seen it in the backyard. My son's seen it in his dreams that this dog was in the backyard, this black Strange, very, very strange. So I go, that's weird that you would hear a dog barking at the front door. And there was nothing. At 12 o'clock at night, they're filming our video because they wanted to get the atmosphere. But it was like in July, it was 97 degrees or something. It was so hot, and nobody was out walking their dog. But even the producer and the director said to me later, they go, we don't know who this is at the front door, Anita, because nobody was wearing a hat, and there was no. We tried to make it where the door opened and you didn't see, and there's that shadow. Goes, I saw that when I'm editing, and can you tell me what that is? I go, well, Bill, I told you the house is haunted, so you guys might something might show up on your videos when you're not expecting it, and a few things did. I mean, they had a couple experiences here when they were filming that. Yeah, that they said, yeah, you're
Wow.
playing. We agree with you. There's something weird going on now. So,
I didn't know
yeah,
that
that's
happened during
this is just.
the
I mean, yeah, we did a
I didn't know that.
trailer of the book, and
Oh, yeah. Wow,
yeah, that we
Anita,
I had
that
things
is
show up on the video.
well,
I have to have a sense of humor at this point because otherwise I'd be crying. I mean, you have. I mean, it's just to me when I talk about it, it's like, is this really happening for me? Because I'm pretty pragmatic, kind of down to earth person, and for these things, I mean, I do, but I have a very, very open mind. I've always believed in, there could be, ghosts or other kinds of things that, this is not everything in this life. There's other things going on, and I'm very open to ancient history, and I deal with antique dolls, and people ask me, "Are you afraid of the dolls?" No, I've never been afraid of the dolls because it wasn't only till Hollywood made it where the dolls were scary because it's let's present this. And of course, I never knew about the Annabelle doll until you've seen the movies, and studied about the Warren cases. But I've had antique dolls in my house for years and never. I mean, they're beautiful works of art and historical artifacts, and so it never bothered me. But I'll tell you though, working with historical things, I do believe about the attachments now. I definitely with Joe if he's working on something. Yes, I think that of that before, but I do think that that's now I know that attachments on artifacts because we've had energy readings on some Native American pieces I have, and the energy thing just goes the on the meter just goes really high. And I have a Peruvian mummy doll. I have a doll that's wrapped in Peruvian textiles that are at least 500 years old. And my friend
oh,
bought this doll. It's handmade, and the textiles were, yeah, they are of the textiles were so prevalent when these people were doing a lot of grave robbing in Peru. There's such an excessive amount of grave robbing that the people are poor and they're looking for easy money. And I have a dear friend who's been in Peru. She's a forensic anthropologist. She has been down there studying the Paracas skulls and many different things with the museum. She was down there before COVID, and she told me how many that they had to have guards with them when they were studying out in the Acoma Desert where the Paracas skulls. She said it's just the grave robbing is beyond imagination. But she said years ago, like my friend bought this. He bought this doll. It was from the 50s, but he was in Peru in the 70s, so he must have bought it then. But they would make these grass or fiber dolls, and the textiles came from mummy wrappings that were just discarded in the desert after they would loot the tombs. So the villagers would take the textiles and make clothing on these mummy dolls. So yeah, so I've got yeah, that has a high reading too on that doll. Then I found that in my friend's belongings. It's like, what do you do with something like this? A Peruvian mummy doll.
oh my God.
I mean, this is the
And that's
strange
like a
stuff that I
horror
deal with,
movie.
Mercedes.
Oh,
It's
what? That's like a
crazy.
horror
I'm
movie.
just
Just
trying to
I
have
could
a
just see
normal
the like
life.
the
You can't have a
wrappings
normal
of this
life. You
doll.
can't,
Oh,
you know.
wow. Good Lord. So
Yeah, yeah. Like what
what
is
do
this?
you
Oh, and I see this label on there. Oh, Peruvian mummy doll. 1950s. Like, no, yeah,
what do you do to keep your house
yeah. That's
cleansed?
that's strange. My life is strange.
What do you do to keep your house cleansed now?
A lot of prayers and keeping a very positive. Um, well, we say the we prayers, but Bill's told us, keeping positive energy, that we try to. Well, I try to keep a very loving home, and my son and I get along very, very well. And he's the light of my life, and I know that he always likes looking out for me. So between keeping an atmosphere of positivity and bringing the light in, I always try to do good to others. I keep a positive attitude, but also have a deep faith and pray every day, for guidance and to keep, just negative energy out of our lives. And if people tend to be, we have a business and there's a lot of, it's negative energy for people not being satisfied, or you don't have a particular model because we have a hobby store and they get upset. I go, well, we can't keep and like, we don't know what you want. So, I just say to my son, don't get stressed. This is a very stressful kind of business, which worries me, for the future. Like I was just at the store today and I left around 4 o'clock because I had things I had packed up to, because we do a lot of online sales. But he was stressed, and then things calmed down because he had a deal with one of our suppliers. And, we finally got something straight out after 2 months, because we weren't able to order certain things because they changed their website algorithm. And we finally got somebody on the phone. It took us 2 months through emails to get somebody to talk to us and go step by step to get this resolved, which we finally did. And that really was bugging my son for like 2 months, because he says, I can't order what I need for certain people because I can't get on their website. So that resolved. But it's the stress that, that creeps into your life, no matter, as you well know,
Yeah.
from things that you've told me, that you sometimes you don't
Yeah.
have control over certain things. But all we can do is try to remain centered and to try to deal with it. But it's easier said than done. I mean, there's things where I get stressed out, but then I just think, you know what? I can't let this rule my life. People will say, oh, don't you record things? We try not to provoke or get into more of discovering things in the house if we don't have to, because we're just trying to live our lives in the house at this point in time. The spirits that we have still roaming in this house or been informed about, they don't realize, that they haven't moved on, and they're just seeing this house as it was maybe 100 years ago. And some of the history of the house has a very sinister. So there's some really bad things happened in the early 1900s here. Even before that, the slave maybe connection. As I said, we have tunnels. We don't know. We're said to have 2 children. Their graves in our back of our property, because this is zoned. Actually, our home in our area outside of Philadelphia, we're zoned country, and people used to bury the people on the properties years ago if you didn't have a church or a churchyard near you. Also, people have keep animals. Like, we've had people with horses, ponies, and we're in a really like a built up area, but to have people that have chickens and that in the past. So it's part of the history of the property that you can't really say, let's clean this out. And it's, oh, Bill said, as long as portals keep opening, because my son and I are both sensitives and things are attracted to us. Things are going to, because things will happen through here that have no connection that we know of, but yet it makes sense to us when we realize, wait a minute, you just said this so and so came to you, and now you're looking up that they just passed away 10 days ago. And like, what is
Right.
this in connection with us? And a lot of it did connect with my friend's family and some of the things that we're still trying to figure things out, and we might never have everything figured out. It's just you're living your life, and things want to come through. Like, if my son says that he has a dream about and something is coming to him, he has said to me, there might be this one particular person, but then there are opportune spirits while that veil is open. They try to come in, and it's kind of like they don't even relate to what the person that he is being informed at, or that person's talking to him, but it might be something where they might have a connection. Maybe they died on the same date, many years apart. When my son told me my when my mother died, we believe that my dad was waiting for her. He died 2 years before, and they were married 65 years. When my dad passed away, they both passed away in hospice at their home, which is what they wanted. And I took care of them for 6 years. That between hospitals, and my dad had Parkinson's for 10 years. And when my dad passed a short time later, that his grandfather came to him and said that he was fine, that he was with his sister who had passed away only a few years before that. And he mentioned that he said, you know, you have to understand. He said, I'm okay. Tell your grandmother that I'm okay. And you know, but he also said to my son, he said, there's things that are on the property that you're going to figure out. But he was kind of like my dad was privy to my son, that were bothering us, but yet, like, do you tell, like, we were hesitant to tell our family, like, oh yeah, my dad, guess what? I told my brother, dad came to Chris and told him that he's fine, that he believes, that, he said he was with his sister, that, but it's like our own family, like they have a hard time believing, like we have a few people, like as strangers, people will believe us more, or our friends, than my own family,
Yeah.
which is fine because my job's not to convince them. This is what I
Right.
lived through. But if you don't want to believe it, okay, I mean, you do you, you're fine. I mean, I'm not here on this earth to convince people. It's only to share what I've been through, that if other people recognize that, to let them know you're not alone. That I've been through this, and if you find that there's commonality, yes, that this could possibly be, because I have people contacting me, emails through my blogs and stuff, and they just said, I can't believe you talked about demonic handprints or things on your windows or your glass, and you see these weird handprints. I go, yeah. I said, we don't know where they're coming from, but they're making themselves known. And we all we can do is acknowledge it, but yet we don't want to give them too much to say, yeah, we're inviting you into our lives, because we don't know if they're good or bad, because evil can disguise itself as a young child, and to say they need your help and get you sucked in, like that's what Bill's warned us about. He said, don't be too readily to believe, this could be maybe a child, because it could be something else in disguise. So you have to be vigilant too, Mercedes. So I gave you a long answer.
No. Can you
But
hear
yeah,
me? Can you hear me on when I'm talking correctly? Can you hear me? I'm wondering if I'm talking and you
yes.
hear it later.
Hmm.
It said, my dad passed away in
No, it's
November,
not an
and
echo.
okay. And he's been in my house, no doubt. So we've got a Richard Johnson. Hi, Richard. Thank you for chatting with us. I see
Okay.
it.
Hi,
So
Richard.
Richard, Anita, he says that his dad passed away in November, and he's been in his house, no doubt. And I I'm
Okay.
with you, Anita. I see them. I know they're around,
Mm.
and you know, I think the ones
Yeah.
that die tragically, or through foul play, I mean, those I think are
Hmm.
that's the saddest. And the children issue, that's one thing we still have children here. I mean, we've seen the
Hmm.
children here. I've heard them. They've
Hmm.
I mean, it's just a fact, but I believe Bill's totally right. Like, I
Yes.
was tricked. I was tricked by the feelings, and I learned that on the Dead Files. That was one of the biggest things I learned from that investigation was,
Hmm.
and if you ever watch that Damned in the
Yes.
Desert
Hmm.
one, I'm like, I mean, that I was so shocked that I never
That was
assumed that
crazy.
that was what was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
So that shocked me so much that
Yes.
I mean, I can't tell you how, you think you got it figured out, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. So I had to, through Bill, I did learn a different way to deal with these spirits than
Hmm.
I had before. And the ones, my clients that I deal with now,
Yes.
I do use I do it
Mhm.
differently. I'm much more secure. Like I'm like so Chris, like at night, your son, like or
Mhm.
whenever they come, it's like I can see them. And sometimes if I'm not in my mind's eye correctly, or I was just about to go into that space,
Mhm.
then I see somebody walking up to me. And so I put this thing
Yes.
on like, no, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to be. And I immediately ask for the Lord's prayer or the giant warrior angels, and I can see them walking away. Or I'll say,
Mhm.
if you're allowed to be here, if God or just on my highest being, or you can stay. I mean, it's just a weirdest conversation, but I think what you were saying about how, when you open
Mhm.
a door, it's like they're all waiting for this chance to come in. Anita, I've seen I've seen them
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like I'm just looking at me like I'm looking, and they're walking like people walking in a row, walking,
Mhm.
lots of them.
Oh,
And then
wow.
another one would be right above
Mhm.
that. And so I saw one point I saw that on so like what you're saying about the tunnels. So to me it was like all these people are dead, and I would sit
Mhm.
there really quietly. I'd like ask for a cloak kind of to be on me. And then one time they just looked right
Mhm.
at me, because they'll look right at me and I'm like, oh my God, they see me. They looked at
Mhm.
me. And during the
Mhm.
COVID time,
Mhm.
I saw the same kinds of people with masks, walking with masks on during COVID. And then there was
Oh,
like
wow. Oh,
monks.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, this
Wow.
isn't just in the other. And sometimes I'll see, like I'll be sitting there's like I'm in an auditorium, like I am in an auditorium, and there are people sitting in the balconies, and people up there. And I'm just like, what? I
Oh.
mean, I hardly have shared
Mhm.
that one with people, but I guess I just said it. But that one to me is
Wow. Oh,
that's
my goodness.
happened many times.
Yeah,
So
it's
if
it's
anybody has
it's
ever
it's amazing.
experienced that, please, if you see this ever,
Mhm.
share that, because I have no one has ever told
Yeah.
me that they've experienced that type of thing. Now, and Chris, and that's one thing I do say in the documentary is like I was a medical intuitive more or so, and I saw spirit animals, and I saw in the
Mhm.
body, but it wasn't until moving
Oh, okay.
here that all of it just like I mean, I accelerated
Mhm.
to where all the veils started dropping so I could see them. Would people believe me completely all the time? No, because they were like,
Mhm.
"What?"
Mhm.
But I'm like, this is, so I feel I'm so grateful and thankful for Bill and for
Yeah, they can't
everybody
comprehend it.
but it's like, just like you take these notes, and the validation that I have is like, I'm validated, just like you are. You have been validated by them coming into your
Mhm.
property, and then I've seen that picture. That is a man with a hat. That's the same kind of thing. We had a guy with a hat, a black hat.
Mhm.
Other
Mhm.
people in the area. I've
Yes,
talked to
yeah.
numerous people that have seen the same shadow man
Oh, wow.
walking
Yes.
down the road. And she wouldn't she's not going to be in the documentary, but they
Mhm.
told me everything. They just don't want to be in public. They don't want to talk
Mhm.
about it in public. They still live in that area that
Yeah,
this is.
yeah.
And it literally just starts walking, and they're like watching him walking down the road to them, and he disappears. And there I can say 10 different accounts right now that are just that other people and different neighbors in
Mhm.
different areas. So what I'm
Mhm.
curious is, what
Mhm.
about your neighbors, Anita? Did anybody else, do you have any close neighbors that have experienced this as well in your area? Your neighbors, did they
Um,
experience it?
Now it's funny because the way our house is situated, even though we have next door neighbors, now when we had the group here that told us about graves in the backyard, I had 3 women from they've dissolved the group, but 3 of them were connected with this Laurie Hall, who was in our show. They came for lunch, and I said, I would like each one of you that you're grave dowsers to go in the back and see what area that you feel could possibly be something that's out of the ordinary. If we have a grave. And they each took their turn, and then they didn't tell each other until all three of them had been back in our backyard. And after they said, because my son told me, excuse me, my nose is itching, so it must be true. That's what all. Um, my son told me where he knew there was supposed to be a grave. This is all wives. No, my son told me about where he thought there was a grave because the little boy came to him and said that he had died, and he said he had his wooden blocks with him. My son said, "I'm not digging up over there where I think it is. I'm not. I mean, but I think there's a grave back there." And then I was told actually there was two. But anyway, they each went back, and at the end, they said, "Where did you?" They all pointed the same direction. It's exactly where Chris had said was the grave. So they acknowledged that was where they thought there was this grave or two graves of children. And my son told me further, this woman that was seen at the front door happens to be our resident ghost. Now, she hasn't made herself known recently, but she was a caretaker in the 1800s. We call her Marjorie. And she took care of these young children that died in her care. And my son said he woke up from a dream where he saw Marjorie, and he had one of the little children in her arms that was dead. The little girl was dead. And my son woke up crying because it affected him so much. And he said from our upstairs bathroom window, if you look from the window out to our backyard, there's a direct line where the graves are supposed to be. But now we have trees, and it's not directly that you could see. But he said, I've seen Marjorie in my dreams that she's looking out this window in the 1800s. I don't know if it was a bathroom at that point in the 1800s, but whatever window it was or the location, she'd be looking out because that's where the children were buried. But anyway, that we still have, there's been heard laughter, children's laughter through the house. I mean, because, as I said, if this house the property is several hundred years old, and probably before that was Native American, because we're near, not far from an area which was a trap line for the Native Americans, where they would trap animals near the water, whatever it was, hundreds of years ago. So this area is very much historical outside of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia being, a really old city, as far as the founding of our nation. So, it's that people just don't realize you come out only 12 miles from Philadelphia and you're in an area that was really country, that people that lived in Philadelphia in the early times in the 1700s, they would come out here to get away from the city because it'd be so hot and humid. Philadelphia is tropical, in the summertime. So it could be very hot and humid, and people would come out here, through Westchester Pike, which was all boardwalk before they ever put, macadam over it. And the Black Bear Inn was from 1812. That structure was there, and it was a respite for people coming out of the city to stop overnight before they would go on to Westchester, continue west, out towards that area. So it's, there's a lot, like, I didn't realize how much historical things would play in, even though I deal with historical things. It's like a perfect storm because my friend was an anthropologist who passed away. He collected all these things. I was into the history and did the restoration. Then World War II comes kind of into it, which I'm not going to go into that right now. I mean, people could read the books and realize more what happened with that, but it has a really dark side, connecting with my friend's family. And then, my son having people come to him that are related also to these people from World War II. And then people telling me my connection, it's almost like beyond your understanding sometimes. I mean, I can kind of see where my life has been going, and maybe it's always been headed for this. But, if somebody told me, 15 years ago, before my friend passed away, that, this would be my life now, I would really not be questioning it. Like, I don't believe you. This could never be. So we just don't know. It's like you went on a property that you had no idea
Yeah.
when you entered that property, what was on there. And it's like, I'm on this property. I had no idea, what, besides being at my friend's house. Now, my friend's house has been bought and sold about 4 times. So, people that went in there originally, they were there a few years because I understand the man was transferred and they were only going to be there for a few years. But it's changed hands like at least a few more times. And, it's a very nondescript. I mean, the house is really nothing that would make you think that there's any, it's just, maybe the 1950s, it's a rancher style house and it looks like some of the other houses, but people should know it really went behind those walls. What we went through in those 10 months, I go, they have no idea. They have no idea what the history of this property. Every time I go by there when I have to get to our store because it's in that township. It's like they have no idea what went on in that house. And good. I'm glad we sold the place. We sold it to contractors and they gutted the place. But there was a few weird things happening that they didn't mention while they were fixing up
Yeah.
the house. And later on, I told them, I said, well, you don't know, but the place wasn't all what it seemed to be. And then they realized, oh, that's why the door was going up and down, or that's why things seem to be getting misplaced. I go, yeah, they're playing around with that too. But we're
Yeah.
out of there. Now it's our house.
Yeah. And I remember you talking
Yeah, but
about that on the other show. Yeah. So Anita, we've come to the hour of time. And I just really
oh my
appreciate
goodness.
you being go so fast. Could you tell everybody where they could reach and find you and about your
Um,
store before we close the show?
Thank you.
Could you tell everybody where they could reach out to you? Could you tell people, okay, well, like where they could email you or find out more about you in the store?
Okay. Well, you can go on. There's a lot. Our store is called Enter the Realm, and we are on Facebook. If you just go Enter the Realm, and you can see some of the fantastic miniatures my son paints. He's been doing this for like 25 years, and he's an award-winning artist. And about our store, we are on Facebook. Enter the Realm. We're in Springfield Township. We have a lot of models, all kinds of cool stuff, and we do mail all across the country. You can also go to my website, anitajointenzo.com. And on there, you can go to my link, astateofhorror.com, or you can go on darktransference.com, which is the sequel to A State of Horror. And those books are up on Amazon and Kindle that if you can buy them there. And also I have a blog, which is on Blogspot. It's Anita Joe Intenzo dash haunted author blogspot.com. I'm trying to remember. I got the whole address, but I have over 300,000 views on my blogs, and there's like 75 or more blogs with really cool pictures on there. Some of the pictures that aren't in any of my books or anything. But yeah, I'm on Facebook too. You can contact me, Anita Joe Intenzo, on Facebook if you want to chat with me. More than happy to tell people. As I said, I have people contact my blog. People will actually go right through Facebook and they'll say, "Can I just get your book?" Like they don't even want to go on a website, and I'll just give them the link, and they'll just go on to Amazon or the Kindle, and actually I have a big group of fans in the UK and in Australia. I get messages from Australia, from the UK, and even Germany. I actually had to go through a translator. So this guy was contacting me from Germany that he read my books that are on Amazon, and even somebody from India. Somebody contacted me, and in the Middle East, I had somebody contact me that they were so interested in some of the strange things that had happened. So it's amazing, as you said, that we could do this and how far reaching it is. And Mercedes, I'll have to say, what you are doing with your production and your music, I'm like, it is all inspiring. I am just so, I just so impressed with your talents and the beauty that you bring to your work, honey. And, I'm so grateful to be connected with you because you are truly a pure soul, and I just wish you all that you don't have more of this garbage happening in your life. You don't deserve to have that, sweetheart. Be a really inspiring person. I'm so glad we made the connection. I'm so glad that I've met you and be on your show. I really feel happy for about that. So,
Me too. Me too. Thank you so much, Anita. You made me cry. um, so before we close the show, I just want to send prayers out to anybody. And I've got tears now.
felt,
Prayers out to anybody that is needing prayers tonight. Somebody just sent me a message. Oh, by the way, you're a miracle. One of my clients. It's really sweet. Anyway, I know there's people out there needing prayers, and so Anita's here, and she's a prayer warrior. I'm a prayer warrior, and where two or more are joined together, then we just ask for if anybody's hurt, sick, needing help. We just ask for prayers for them and secure them and keep them safe from any harmful, unwanted energies, entities, any diabolical forces. We want to cast those out and command them to go to drier places. Not enough time in this life to be messing around with those rotten, stinking energies. I'm like tired of them.
Yeah.
So thank you. And Anita, thank you so much. And God bless you for being here and sharing your story. And I know you're going to come back again and we'll talk some more. Okay. And also
Oh,
want to
you're
thank,
so kind, and I just
yeah,
no,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
I'll go ahead and end now. I know Stan, our producer, we thank Stan Fikes, our producer, and his wife Teresa, and we just thank the Webb Radio Network and the audience. Thank you so much, audience. We're so glad to be here
Yeah,
with
thank
wonderful
you.
people like Anita, Joe, and Tenzo. Thank
All right.
you. Good night, everyone. Good night.